Hello, welcome to Uketopia, my fourth episode called Great Uke, but where next? Last week I briefly spoke about the pros and cons of a laminate, which is basically just a series of pieces of timber glued together and compressed, as opposed to a solid wood, which is actually carved out of one piece of wood and then joined together. So, pros and cons with each. For instance, with the laminate, which is the tiki, which is what I've got, you can pay anything from 80 Australian dollars up to 500, and then you've got the solid wood, which is the pono, and that you can pay anything from $240 up to $1,000 or more. But as a beginner's uke, I would be looking at a laminate because you can get some really good laminates on the market now. The thing is, I ended up getting the tiki. Now, what happened was, I got the tiki, I saw it advertised on the internet, and it was a guy that was importing them. Now, he didn't know much about them, and this is why I go back that if you can afford to, try and buy your materials, your ukes, whatever you need, through a reputable retailer. Because what happened was, they know the instruments, they can tell you pros and cons of things. Whereas, yes, I got a cheap uke, but he didn't know much about, drum roll, this one came with a pickup. And I thought, a pickup? What the hell's a pickup? And I thought, well, it looks good, looks fancy. All right, that sounds good, especially for the money. But as I found out after buying it, that, there's so much information about pickups. I mean, pickups basically a piece of metal or plastic that sits below the strings there. And I don't know if you can see it. I'll take photos for the end of the video to put up. But this one particularly comes with a equalizer, treble, middle, and bass. But it also has electronic tuner. And initially I thought, wow, that is so good. But as you get to use it, you think, oh, my little snark, because I just love my little snark. And so I really don't use the equalizer on this at all. And of course it plugs in at the back. And some of the problems with some of these take 9-volt batteries, which is a big rectangle battery, and it does impact on the balance of the actual uke. So that's something to look at. This one in particular actually takes two single button, the small button or watch batteries, so it's not so bad. So it really doesn't affect the weight too much or the balance. But that's something to think about. So anyway, before I got this, I looked at the resonator. As I said last time, a resonator's basically got the big colander, what I call colander in Australia, that has the aluminium wind. It's almost like a metallic speaker underneath. Had that for a little while, didn't like it. I ended up selling that, and then of course I got the tiki when I said the tiki. So thing is, I knew I wanted a tenor, so the tenor was the one I wanted. So I had the size right, and then I thought, well, high G, traditional, I'll get the high G, which is what this one is. And of course then I had the pickups. So as I said, with the pickups, active pickups have a high input. Passive, like the Pono, which I'll show you in a minute, is what they call a passive. And it has a weaker electric signal than an active pickup. So both have got pros and cons, and there's something you need to have a look at and do your research. I'll show you this one. This is a preamp. Now I had this done actually after I bought the Pono. The Pono was around about $600-700. So I bought this probably about a year into playing, because I was happy with the tiki, but I thought, this is something I want to keep hacking away at, and I thought I'll go for a solid wood, which I did. And of course I did my research, and ended up with a Pono. And you can't really see it here. The preamp, basically, as I said, the tiki has a equalizer on it and a booster, a bass treble on the actual unit there, which I'll take a picture of. But the Pono is actually, you can't see it, but I will take a picture of it. And as I said, I had this done aftermarket, and it's actually got the pickup actually in there. And it's a preamp, which means there's no bass, treble, or anything on it. Basically, what you hear is what you hear through the amps, and through the amp on this you can control bass, treble, volume. But there's a great UK website called Got a Ukulele, which I've mentioned before. Now he does fantastic reviews of ukuleles. As I said before, there's plenty out there that do it, and also on his reviews that he's talked about preamps, and I end up going with a preamp. So Got a Ukulele, I've put that at the end too if you want to have a look at his ukes. Not that he sells them, but he reviews them, and they're quite thorough, and there's a video, and it's got even your price ranges. So depending on how much you want to spend, I mean, it's UK pricing, but it gives you those price brackets, and you can have a look and see the reviews. And he gives these out of 10, generally 10, and I think the Pono was around about 8 or 9 out of 10, so rated pretty high. So that's why I end up with the Pono. So again, the preamp, that only takes a single battery button on that. So, but look, as a beginner, you're looking at buying a uke. You've got enough to worry about without, oh, do I want a preamp or do I want equalizer on it? For your first ukulele, just stick with the size. Sort the size out you want. Once you've found the size you're happy with, and again, as I said, go through retailers and have a look and hold them and feel them and get advice from reputable retail stores. And then once you've got your size, then probably look at a laminate, because laminates nowadays are pretty good, and if that's within your price range. Because the thing is, you might try the tenor or concert or soprano, you might think, well, that's what I want. And then after 2-3 months, you might find, no, don't want it. So you just spend all this money on a solid wood when you could have got a pretty good quality laminate. So something to think about. So yeah, so just stick with the size you want and stick with probably a laminate. And all this other thing about preamps and equalizer, things like that, you can look at that down the track. And on hindsight, if I'd known that this, the complications with equalizers and tuners built in, I would have said, no, I just want a uke that's just the size that I want, and yes, it's a laminate without all the other complications. But ultimately, it's your choice, and you've got to just do your own research. But so I had that. That was high G, and I thought high G was great. I had that for a few months, and I thought no, I thought. Then I started hearing about low G. I thought, oh, low G. So did a bit of research into low G, and that's when I decided, look, I'll get the Pono, and that, as I said, was around about 600-700 Australian dollars, and that's the Mango Deluxe. I didn't particularly want the Deluxe, but that's the one they had in a retail store, and I mean I liked it, but it's more the quality of the build of it. We experimented with strings, and so far, there's Worth's Browns that I use, but as I said before, fluorocarbon strings, better on the finger, especially when you're just starting, so it's something to think about. But, over 12 months, I think I must have tried about a dozen different types of strings and composition of the strings to see what I liked in sound. And as you'll find out when you start reviewing strings, it's quite a personal choice for strings, and it's based on whether it's a laminate or solid wood, the size of the ukulele. So there's a lot of variables, and at least in Australia, the ukulele strings are relatively cheap. Anywhere from 10 to 20 Australian dollars for a set of strings. So just talking briefly before I go, I'll just show you what happened was because I got the Tiki that had the amp in it. I thought, well, now I've got to look at an actual amp, and this is a Bellcat. I mean, it doesn't really matter on the brand, but that's basically what was it? I think it's 15 watt amp, and that was a bit of fun. In Australia, we use 240 volts, so it's got the lead, power lead. But again, if I did a bit more research, because I thought, well, that's all great if you've got access to power. But the problem is, when you think, well, that's great if I've got power, but if I want to, traveling, because we caravan a fair bit, and I thought, if I want to annoy my neighbours while we're caravanning, I want something that's portable and battery operated. And so again, research, and if I'd spent a bit more time researching, I wouldn't have bothered with the powered one, 240 volt one. I would have just got a rechargeable battery one. And this is a great little amp, Aroma, and basically just battery operated. And you can actually have a mic input if you wanted. You've got the guitar or ukulele input, and the other end, of course, just plugs into your ukulele. The great thing is this charges takes about an hour to charge, and you might have 3 hours of play out of it. And you've got the bass, treble, echo. You've got all sorts of different things on it. But if you want pure sound for the uke, and that's why I got the preamp, was that you can just turn those down or low and just control the pure volume, and it just sounds great. So, as I said, if I spent a bit more research, I would have not worried about the 240 and saved myself money. So one thing to think about when you get to that stage is have a look at reputable battery chargeable amps, because it'll save you money in the long run, and it's just great little unit, well built. So now next week are songs, because okay, I've got my tiki, and as I said briefly last week, I talked about songs and different YouTube artists that'll put the songs up with the lyrics and the chords and the words. But that in itself, I thought, oh yeah, that's straightforward. But every different YouTuber puts up a different format of how they play their strings and put up their chords. So I'll go into more detail. But next week, I've actually got my own my own little book, and that took months to and I'll just show an example how I've done it. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but I'll take a picture of one and I'll put it at the end of the video. And next week I'll go into more detail about how I got my songs. But I found the format that I've got here works best for me. And I've got about 25 songs now in my little playlist. And there are just different strumming, different finger picking and stuff like that. So you'll see that in the videos as I put them up. So I hope this was some help to those thinking about taking up the ukulele or just started playing the ukulele. And hopefully we'll catch you next week. So thanks very much for viewing, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.